You don't just get to run with your own basic instincts and just do a thing with them because you just want to, like, no, stop, okay? Like, Papa sees hostilities against oneself. Yeah, a type establishment thing. So now, because of Freud's that stage, that phallic phase, that's when little children start to, like I said, experiment with their sexuality. But parents must intervene. Irresponsible parenting. In the heart of a child dwells a great deal of folly. In the heart of a girl child dwells penis envy. And in the heart of a boy child dwells castration anxiety that can result in essentially a misogynistic flair that's going to make him underestimate women and think that you ain't jack, you're small, you're tiny, and I'm gonna rule you. It's the Adam curse. Like, the curse on Adam is that from now on you're gonna rule your wife Eve. So when you want to lord it over a woman with an iron fist, that is castration anxiety. You don't want your own authority taken over. And so for those reasons, in protecting your manhood, your phallus from being castrated because the girl covets yours, right? Covets your power. Type establishment thing, you then will by any means necessary maintain your manhood, right? You will maintain your manhood to a point of being, like, frankly, just kind of violent. You're gonna be, just heavy-handed on a woman, and also withhold love and all different kinds of weird things. Listen, there are roots, right? So, like I keep saying in my content, psychology half-heartedly explains the condition of man. When you go to the Bible, you find the full story, and that's what I'm here trying to achieve, right? And I hope I'm doing an excellent job in so attempting. So herein lies this weird stage of childhood development. And so with this issue, when as a mother, when you find your little girl are just saying, show me yours, Johnny, when little Johnny from next door and your little daughter, if you find them in a small little corner at the tiny age of 4 or 5, out here checking each other's nether regions. No, they're not mailing, they are not exploring their sexuality. They're sinning. You need to let them know at that age, in the heart of a child dwells a great deal of folly. The rod of discipline drives it away from him. So you let the kid know that, no, don't be experimenting with Johnny's wiener, and you don't, Johnny, experiment with my girl's sandwich. Like, just let the gay, hey, you break them apart. You let them know that this stuff is problematic. But in 2025, parents are so liberal that they are letting children show you mine and I'll show you yours. Like, hey, in South Africa, there was a law, not a law, but it was a bill drafted, I don't know if it was passed, right, a couple of years ago, where they were actively trying to train children in a school curriculum to explore their sexuality by masturbating as early as the age of 5, because that's when the phallic phase actually more or less is around. And Papa, there was this one colored lady that covered that story on some We Need to Stand Up. And again, therein lies the thing that I'm trying to speak about. You be thinking that your government is crazy and so you're all going to die down here. You be thinking that your government is crazy so everybody is in a dystopian nightmare, until there are people that rise up and say we need to stand against what is being infiltrated into our schools, into our education curricula. Because what the heck are they trying to teach my 5-year-old child in crèche, in preschool, in kindergarten type setup thing? Hey, to masturbate? But our crazy deep state Illuminati nonsense government thoroughly try to teach children to masturbate at the age of 5. They're not trying to drive out that ill discipline in the child. They're trying to infiltrate it. They're trying to say, run with your basic instincts, your passions, your total depravity. Hey, your human heart that is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Just run with it, baby. Run like Forrest. Just run. That was our government. But there were people that rose up and said no. So I don't know. I haven't ever since then checked what went down. I have not checked whether or not it was finally passed, that proposed bill. But they thoroughly were trying to teach kids to masturbate in my country, in the South Africa that you're working at today. They were trying to do that. I hope it did not succeed. Yo, anyway, you go do the mathematics. I'm not sure what's given. And but whatever, right? On the dust, I'm out of here, right? Like a vamoose. I'm just skedaddling. Yeah, Mara, that was a whole thing a couple of years ago. That was out here tabled before us all, go parliament, and Cyril Ramaphosa, he just wakes up the talk out of his eyes, and he just out here tries to expropriate people's land without compensation. So maybe he just passed that bill, also just yawning shortly after waking up from sleep. I don't know. I hope not, but it was definitely tabled. But there was a pushback on the ground. So if at all there is pushback, you are to recover yourself from the thought that you're all going to die down here. You must realize that if you fight, if you stand, if you pick up your mantles, and if you go out into the village and you pick it, you might actually, in that riotous state, succeed to stay a heinous agenda from being proliferated. But mainstream media, will actually make you think that children are just okay to be taught to masturbate in class. Yeah, mainstream media will make you think that there is no single sober 5-year-old that will realize that I don't want to be seeing my brother's manhood or my classmate's manhood and actually covet it to a point of masturbating as a 5-year-old and it being okay, or masturbating as a 6-year-old and it being okay. It is to assume that children can't figure that out. But if your kid is growing up in a house of parents that are like my nation's government, trying to like basically allow in an education curriculum in guidance or life orientation for children to masturbate, to put that in our curriculum, if at all, parents are like that, just like our government, well, I mean, yeah, what else? What other foundation does this kid have? Because a kid will naturally develop a curiosity towards the differences, towards the genital differences of both parents, male and female parents. They will notice the difference. They're observing, they're looking around, and they're figuring things out. They're seeing differences. And so when they notice these differences, but they live in a household of just these liberal, like bride brainiac, like bride noodle brains, like when they live in a household of mom and dad, the liberals, like their children growing up in ancient Mesopotamia in some crazy anti-Semitic like state, they're living in ancient Moab, worshipping Chemosh, and the kids think that it's okay for them to walk through the fire as a holy sacrifice of themselves in quietness. When they're being sacrificed, they won't scream, they won't complain, they won't see that they're being killed. They won't be uncomfortable about being sacrificed as children because they will be made to feel like it's an honor to die for Chemosh. They will feel like it's an honor to die for Molech. They will feel like it's an honor to be chosen. If you've seen the movie Ruth on YouTube, the children over there be actually getting trained to feel honored, to be burned in the fire in behalf of Chemosh. These children don't know any different. So if kids are being taught by their own parents that masturbation is cool at any age, whether or not you're 5 or even 15, when they're growing up in Netflix culture and their parents are not actively rebuking crazy activity, they will, when a teenage girl that is curious about sex at the age of 12 rocks up, a preteen rocks up and says, "Mom, I'm in love with Johnny Boy who's 14 and we both want to have sex," and the mother then sits them down and says, "Listen, you don't want to fall pregnant at this age, so I would recommend that you use these kinds of condoms and go on the contraceptive pill." Instead of entirely rebuking sexual activity at all, they're going to feel honored to grow up with such a liberal parent and to also offer their bodies up to Chemosh. If at all your children are growing up in that ancient civilization in the movie Apocalypto, they won't know any better. So the issue here then is in atmospheres that are actively trying to, what is the word that I'm looking for? Prime children and train children to be like child soldiers. They're like children when children are growing up under crazy rhetorics, they're like kids in Gaza that are being trained Jew hatred from very young. Hence why I spoke about that one young man, Wahamas, that called his mom and dad, priding himself in killing a married couple that are Jew. He was likely primed from the time he was a child. And I mean, the kids of Gaza that are being trained to hate Jews to a point where bloodshed and rape of Israeli women ain't jack. They don't see humanity in that. That's just one example on a global scale of what happens when you indoctrinate children from an early age. We all know these child soldiers listed about Africa and how it is that, yes, like it meant they're lethal. They're lethal. And they are with limited conscience because they just like from their mother's wombs. They're already trained how to carry a gun and how to not care for certain tribes. Look at how young those militants out here massacring Christians in Sudan are. I spoke about them in my last video, about how it is that you look in their faces and some of them look like as young as 16, 17, and they're actually carrying this big fat chunky rifle, and then they're rounding up all of these Sudanese men and women in a shallow grave and they're just like shooting them. 16 years old. How have you no heart at that tiny age? I would not have been able to gaze at that kind of bloodshed at the age of 16. I would have been bereaved, I would have been grieved, I would have been sorrowful because I was trained differently. I was raised up in an atmosphere where it is that death was not healthy, it was not right, it hurt, it stung, and that there was nobody that necessarily deserved it. And so it would have killed me as a 16-year-old to watch all that murder. But these boys were able to just carry it out and then eat a burger afterwards. Why? Because from the time they were as young as perhaps 5 years old, enduring that very psychosocial stage of childhood development, they were trained that killing certain people ain't jack, certain lives don't matter. So when then you train children from a small little age, growing up in these cray-cray households, that's when then you actually dealing with individuals that frankly do cause that dystopia, the dystopia that everybody is evil, because that's what's going on. And that's what mainstream media, I guess, is targeting. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically infiltrate leftist doctrine in children. And they're also trying to infiltrate this doctrine through parents that are crazy like Moabite parents, that are crazy like Amorite parents, that are crazy like Philistinian parents out here teaching children in Gaza to hate the Jews. And if at all you can train children from a small little age to hate the Jews, then eventually you will get to a point where, even though the statistics presently don't reflect our desired eventuality, in the future, it will reflect it. So make the parents nice and scrambled in their brains so they can teach their children smack, so their kids won't know to riot against furries in school. Yeah, in class that want a kitty litter. If you can get to their millennial parents, maybe even Gen Z parents, you can then get the Gen Alpha children being raised in cooked households, literally cooked like an egg households. And so then we're raising up a generation of leftists. But my thing is, what the heck? Why do you want a world like that? Why do you want a world full of like 5-year-olds masturbating? Why do you want a world full of teenage pregnancies? Why do you want a world full of STDs? Why under heaven do you want a world full of people walking around in mascot suits? No, not because it's a soccer match, not because it's a rugby match, and the mascot is out just standing for the blue team, but because that's who they read. Who is this? That's what they identify as. Like, it's weird, guys. It's weird. But you see, like I said earlier, when enough people believe in a weird thing, it starts to become true to them, even though it's entirely bizarre. Until those who are speaking the right thing are ignored, like that lady in the gymnasium in the US. She was the one who was right. It made entire sense to those of us who are sober, and yet she was encircled by a bunch of chunky, grown people, even with muscles. After all, it was a gymnasium, that were just walking right by her like she was crazy, and she's the one that lost gym membership. Hey? Everything that is good is called evil, and what is good, evil is called good. The world is flipped upside down on its head, and people are walking backwards, and they're upside down, right? Where, inside out. Their jerseys are inside out. They're not properly worn. And so with the world looking like that, I'm sorry, that's what eventually results in the end of the world. That's what eventually results in the Red Queen necessitating, we're all going to die down here. We're all going to die down here eventually. The rhetoric on the mouths of Christians, of prophets and what have you will be, you're all going to die down here. It's gonna get there. Because at this rate, if at all there is no restraining power, if there is no restraining force, if there are not enough voices on the ground to out here uproot trash out of the brains of indoctrinated children, if at all there are people of that nature, and also if there are not enough households retraining children, if at all there are not enough households training children up in the right way, and since kids also tend to influence each other, trust therefore that your sober, mature son will then retrain his furry friend that this is not right, it's not normal, it's not human. And if at all this friend will then be changed, they could then conquer the weird household that this kid grew up in, and so retrain them, acclimate them to a rather normal way of living. If at all there aren't enough voices on the ground standing against insane culture that's losing their mind, the world will ultimately taper down to a point where we're all going to die down here. And this time it's not a glitching robot, it's the truth. This time around, it's the end of the world. Because everywhere in schools, 75% of the student body over there is woke. Yeah, in schools, 75% of the student body over there is woke. And so really and truly, the violently outnumbered 25%, 75% is woke, 10% is indifferent, while the remaining 15% are trying to stand up against it. They're too outnumbered for there to be any true change. And when people are that outnumbered, that's when whole-scale persecution and slaughter, therefore, of those who stand for what is right is going to happen. That's when the tribulation becomes a thing. That's when beheading people for their testimony in Christ becomes a reality. But for as long as there are enough parents training children right in their households, there will always be enough children at school standing up against crazy, weird stuff that's obviously weird. And maybe these kids might even succeed to influence, since children tend to peer pressure, rub off on each other, all these other crazy kids that want to go to school with litter boxes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, or kids that want to go and use girls' bathrooms and what have you. I mean, if you think about even that story of that, I think this also happened, I think this happened in the UK or maybe in the United States of America, where a whole bunch of kids in a boys' bathroom were lamenting about a girl. This time around it was children, and not so much a grown adult in a gym, all right? It was children that were lamenting that what is a girl doing in the boys' bathroom? And this was recorded. And this girl was like, I identify as a boy. And the boys were like, whoa, like, get out. And all the kids that lamented were, there were kids, there were children there that were Christian, and there was one Muslim boy that lamented that what's a girl doing in our bathroom? And the Muslim boy, listen to this leftist politics, the Muslim boy was let alone because he's Muslim. He was left alone, even though he also complained that there was a girl in the boys' bathroom, while the Christian boys were facing suspension from the school. And of course, the girl that was in the boys' bathroom was the victim. Weird stuff like that. But was this not taken up by mainstream, by conservative media as a bizarre story? Do you understand what I'm saying? And also, the majority of the boys in that bathroom were unhappy about what in the world was going on in there, evidencing that children are not trying to have this be pushed down their throats either. Enough of them are complaining, but these people are so crazy that they're willing to go and grab the one weird girl that wants to chill in the boys' bathroom and risk rape. Yeah, they would much rather take up her cause, because this here is for the future. My point exactly. It is like the Pareto principle. If at all you have studied in management the term called Pareto principle, a Pareto principle has it that, 80% of all the calamity, essentially, in any given ecosystem caused, in any ecosystem that eventuates, is caused by 20% of its inputs or its causes. 80% of the effects have got 20% of causes. So essentially, when there is a disaster that strikes in any given ecosystem, it is caused by a remnant, a small number of people, but they're gnarly enough to make a big enough disturbance, which is why militia don't have to be that many to out to massacre an entire village. They just infiltrate so much fear that people don't rise up against them, even though the people are rather in the majority. It's also like what happens in a neighborhood where there are gangsters. The gangsters are violently outnumbered. People can get arms. People can rise up against a local gang, but they won't out of fear. They don't want to lose their lives, even though they can get arms legally, and so therefore defend themselves, and so eventually conquer a syndicate, a gang, like gang violence in that community. They won't deal with 200 gangsters in a community of 100,000 people because of fear. It's the Pareto principle, like all up in your grill. It's the Pareto principle. 20% of individual inputs are to account for 80% of whatever calamity befalls that ecosystem. So all this like leftist politics nonsense is also following the Pareto principle for the larger majority. It is also following the Pareto principle because in favor of a few crazy people that want their worldview to be the reality because they are living in an anomaly, they're living on an outlier, they are unprepared to repent, they are unprepared to seek the Lord's face to cure them of their difference, they are unprepared entirely to essentially realize that they are not normal and they need to seek out whatever it takes to be normal. Instead of doing conversion therapy, right? You would much rather convert everybody to your narrative, and because people don't want to repent, because people don't want to be confronted with their sin, because people don't want to admit that they are nonsense, because people, they would much rather just make everybody else, frankly, just kind of accept indaba yokuthi kunjena. And if at all you don't want to accept it, I am going to run with the rest of the human race whose hearts are deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, who are also slaves to sin, who were conceived in sin by their parents, who are such slaves to sin that because it's just such an onerous, tiresome, burdensome, and laborious task to repent, I am going to find favor in those people who say, don't repent, you are born this way, because they think they're Lady Gaga, okay? They want to say I was born this way instead of actually work out their own salvation with fear and trembling, because it's just so much easier to glide in sin. It's so much easier to glide in sin, and so they will literally find support from a cool, big, fat, chunky media network, because all the executives of that network in and of themselves are aware of the fact that it's so hard to be righteous. And frankly, I don't even want to be righteous because I'm a slave to sin. So I can get away with my particular niche of murder. I'm gonna allow this niche of murder to go down so we can all just be like, baby, I am a hard, knock, intense, crazy person. I was born this way. They will make like Lady Gaga and be Gaga as well. But look, I was born like this. And so because everybody just wants to be born like this and be left alone in that state, they will also support crazy other people that are similarly, crazy people that are similarly rebellious to God. They will go and grab all these individuals in these uneasy streets of South Africa and elsewhere and be like, we were born this way. sci-fi. 1 second? Yeah, rather than that. But you see, the Bible also says a little sleep and a little slumber and a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will overwhelm you like an armed man and scarcity like a bandit. So since spiritual death is like, frankly, just kind of bankruptcy too. When you're lazy to fight sin, when you're lazy to fight your flesh, when you're lazy to beat it into submission, you will be eternally bankrupt. You will be eternally bereft. You will be eternally nonsensed. And so for those reasons, you ought strive to enter the kingdom of God, for many on that last day will try to enter in but not be able, okay? All right, child. Yo, is you listening, baby? If you don't want to listen, you don't got to. But it comes hiding. And I will wait. Yeah, my point exactly, right? They don't want to be doing no kind of repenting because it's just really hard work to do that, right? Working out your own salvation with fear and trembling is a whole feat. Do you understand? And so because it's just such an onerous task, most people don't want to do it, so they will stand for other people who don't want to conquer their sin. And in the end, it's going to be so very many people on the earth that are unprepared to essentially toggle their consciences. They will want to ignore their consciences as to what is wrong and what is right. And because it's so hard to be righteous, since they are slaves to sin, they don't even get explained to as to why it's so rough to conquer darkness. It's because you're a slave to sin and you cannot come up out of it apart from the Holy Spirit. He has come to set the captives free, Jesus Christ. He has come to bring liberty to the captives. You're a captive. So acknowledge him and he will make it easier for you to embrace righteousness. He says in his word, "Come to me, all of you who labor and are heavily laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." His burden is light. Basically what it takes to conquer sin, when you have the Holy Spirit, he enables you to put to death the deeds of the body. So it makes the burden of overcoming this onerous, heavy, like weighty flesh that much easier. Christ is the enablement to basically cure you from your slavery to sin and make you a slave to him, so that you will love that which he loves and hate that which he hates, and be enabled to conquer the body of death. That is what the cross promises you. Man, people don't even want to get all up in that interrogating business. They don't even want to learn. They don't even want to find out. They don't even want to, just basically kind of check it out as with a microscope. They don't even want to try. So they indoctrinate children. They figure all of us, we want to be gay one day, all of us. All of us, we want to be trans one day, all of us. All of us, we want to get drunk and be merry, YOLO, only live once, and be entirely selfish, all of us. All of us need to be able to get by our own, by any means necessary, to a point of using witchcraft from here to Timbuktu until everybody is dead in our families, all of us. We want to keep on legalizing abortion and having as much sex as we want without there being consequences of all these pregnancies we keep on bringing into the world. All of us. All of us want to, proper. They all just want to have their fill of sin, even though it makes them feel uncomfortable. And then the way that they deal with their guilty consciences is by collectively agreeing that there is nothing wrong with the way that you are. And so they basically gather for themselves a great number of teachers to teach them what the itching ears want to hear. They gather for themselves everybody that will make them feel comfortable in sin instead of dealing with the fact that they're obviously uncomfortable with it. They help each other be comfortable with it, okay? And so because then they help each other be comfortable with it, they then indoctrinate children through a Pareto principle. It is essentially a terror network of gangsters in the community that, because they've got big fat junky bazookas and can threaten you to obscurity, they then wreak havoc in the peace of an entire neighborhood. Listen, a neighborhood. They wreak havoc in the peace of an entire neighborhood, even though there are not that many people. So listen, little by little, piecemeal by piecemeal, nibble by nibble. That's how the world is going to ultimately get to the dystopian nightmare of we're all going to die down here. It'll eventually get there. We're now 75% of children just want to be furries in a primary school. We are not there yet. I don't even think we're near it. I don't even think we're close, right? But Pareto principle is enough to terrorize an entire neighborhood. It is enough to destroy an entire ecosystem's morality. It is enough to cause a whole company to it is enough to cause an entire company to retreat in fear. Like at MTN, where I used to wear this wig. I don't even know why it's falling off my head, but you know, whatever. We alter and we adjust, because I mean, proper, we ain't even trying to lie. This is a wig. Like that's what it is. Anyway, whatever. That's what happened to me at MTN. The majority of staff members on the ground knew that I was being done dirty. I was being done in under. I was essentially being destroyed. And however, because of a small number of little miscreants, and because of how powerful those miscreants were, they were executives, right? they were pretty much HR, because of the power of those that could essentially make the calls that could destroy people's futures and what have you. People that would have stood with me didn't, just out of fear of losing their own jobs. And you see, like, when people don't do what is right because of fear, when people don't do what is right because of fear, it doesn't matter that those who intimidate and those who cause fear are, out of 100 people, only 20. People will literally disregard and entirely ignore the fact that, listen, the numbers are on our side. The numbers are on our side. That's actually, I don't know if you've seen the series of the movies The Hunger Games. That's how they win the war. They succeed to convince the tributes, the people in the capitals, in the districts, that there are more of us than there are of them. The people in the capital are not that many. They've just got resources. They've got guns and they've got money, but we are the numbers. And that's also how Katniss and them it's not Catching Fire. In Catching Fire, the All-Stars, they convince the tributes in the Hunger Games to basically stand up against the capital, saying that the enemy is out there. We are not the enemy. They came to realize that we are not going to tap dance when the elites say we must tap dance, because it is the very reason of us tap dancing out of fear. It is the very reason of us tap dancing out of fear that then keeps them in power, even though they don't have the numbers. Insofar as we can rise up together and revolt, the entire capital will be brought low, and that's exactly what happened. As we know, the Hunger Games progress. From Catching Fire, the revolution happens, and by the time we're dealing with, it's not Mockingjay, but the very last one, you get my point. Yeah. We are to be dealing with President Snow being brought to book. We are to be dealing with Peter recovering from his mental illness after being kidnapped by the Capitol to do their bidding. We are to be dealing with people ultimately conquering nasty, gnarly, beefy structures. People realize eventually, somewhere along the way, that the enemy is out there, but it takes 1 or 2 or 3 brave souls to put that out there, and for them to survive so many crazy, essentially being ignorednesses, for them to survive, first of all, the first Hunger Games, for them to convince a mob inside the second Hunger Games that we can't just keep dancing for these people when they say jump and we say how high. We literally cannot continue to do that. So stealth works that way, and mainstream media works that way. And I am noticing weird little crazy, gargantuan, like mammoth channels on YouTube that are out here so famous and so popular, pushing a narrative that is entirely catastrophic. And when you go in their comment section, you will feel just a dystopia overwhelm you until you think the world is over, until you realize that there is a severity of desperation on the part of those that are walking within a Pareto principle. The desperation is in the recognition of the fact that they're small in number in comparison to the reality, but they're trying to fulfill an alternative reality, and they are trying to basically, they've got a 50-year goal, a 60-year goal, a 100-year goal, and they are going to get to the world through lies. And they know that lies told in mainstream media are easily and very quickly snubbed. They're very quickly brought low. Fact-checking on the part of those that are standing against this weird, gnarly narrative is all that it would take to debunk a lie being spoken in the mainstream media. And so, in the interest of protecting mainstream media networks, they then hire these little subsidiaries, if you will, that then are made just gargantuan, just entirely mammoth, like YouTube channels that are much too big for what under heaven it is that they're trying to proliferate. And these people get to the small man on the ground. They get to the small woman on the ground. They get to indoctrinate Gen Zs and millennials that they might raise their children up in apocalypto, weird little crazy ancient civilization with no real manners. Yeah, they do that. They hire them out so that they can start to change the climate and the culture of an entire country, of an entire global citizenship. And my thing is, what the heck is wrong with you? Why do you want the world to have children that are wearing mascot suits? And why do you want an orgy world? Why do you want a world so full of immorality? I mean, immoral structures, immoral worlds, immoral ecosystems destroy countries. That's history proven. Nobody needs to be even interrogating it too deeply. It evidently destroys countries. So if at all you want to destroy countries, what then are you trying to achieve? Because you know that a dystopian world is not sustainable. But if at all you actually want to run the world, you have to get them in a dystopia so they can lean on you for everything. So you demoralize an entire planet of people until it's being run by a, yes, one world government. Until it is being run by, yes, a one world religion where there will not be any single dogma belonging to a sky god that is unseen and with moral absolutes, because we need to be able to do whatever we want to do. It's the whole building of the Tower of Babel again. It is it's one or two people literally who run the world, who are trying to make it so immoral that ultimately it will implode on itself and lean on Big Daddy, the Big Daddy of which is global deep state, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's all that I can think about. Why would any country want to proliferate children wearing mascot suits at school and taking kitty litter over there to poop and pee in it as people? Why would they let that happen? It's obviously bizarre, it's obviously insane, it's obviously crazy. And the people who are doing this are not in and of themselves mentally ill. They know that this is going to destroy countries. And so if at all it destroys countries, they must have one other bigger mission up their sleeves, up their pockets, aren't they? Don't they? Of course they must. They must. So when I saw Redacted, I was like, don't come at me. Me, I'm not living in a dystopia. Futhi, I believe in Jesus. Don't come at me like a bonga metatswape santi ungafuna ukuphuma boy. Mina ngizokhipha ungazingeni. Kuyapera bonga usikaqonkela mohara my barrack engathi G-string ngifuna comfortable mina all the day long. I want to be comfortable, cover my entire nether regions proper. My butt cheeks out. I'm putting G-string, and what is this Redacted was actually making like a G-string. I was like, I'm sorry, it's too uncomfortable. Swimming pool how do you get it? Give me my modesty back. When I was inside, when I saw this thing, first of all, go Redacted, I go in and I notice that they are just insatiably anti-Semitic. I noticed that they're anti-Semitic through this video, but then I also noticed something else. I noticed that anti-Semitism is bizarre because the people against whom the world is at odds right now, or at least those the portion of the world that is at odds with them, are evidently innocent. Yeah, it makes sense that even their channel should be called Redacted because they're trying to take away the truth from being spoken. They want to take away certain portions of veracity. They want to redact. No, thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's what's giving. Anti-Semitism is mental illness. Anti-Semitism doesn't make sense. Anti-Semitism is obviously spiritual because the individual against whom the chunk of the individuals against whom the world is against in this fashion is provably the better guy. They are provably the more reasonable person to favor in a court of law. Provably. They are the better person. They're the ones with whom if you stand you are safest, and yet nonetheless it exists. It shows a spiritual cancer on the part of the earth, and it also shows a paid-off conglomerate of people that are happy to punt it. For what reason? All that I can conclude is that it's a deep state attempt to create a deep world. Never mind deep state, like a one world government, but like proper. It's gonna get there, O Tower of Babel, and all of these people don't know what they're doing. Just like Christ on the cross dying, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. They don't know what they're doing because if they did, they would stop. All right. They don't want to worship Satan deeply, not truly, because if at all they knew exactly what they were doing, they would stop. Nobody wants to go to hell forever. And also nobody wants the Orwellian dystopian nightmare of the Antichrist reign. The Antichrist system is too dystopian. It's too dystopian. When you can't see the sun in the sky, and when you can't feel the rain on your skin anymore, because it's all acid rain, nobody wants to live in that. When crops don't grow anymore, but they are out here being, when crops don't grow organically anymore from rain and from soil, sand, chlorophyll, sun and everything, but they have to be sort of kind of made in greenhouses that are incubated like weird. Think you're living on Alpha Centauri or whatever. Think you're living in outer space in the show The 100. On that day, you're gonna miss good old-fashioned trees just popping out after a rainy season. Good old-fashioned budding leaves. Okay? You're gonna miss leaves. You're gonna miss roses. Yeah. Nobody wants the dystopian nightmare that they're contributing to building. All of you crazy content creators that are being paid a chunky millions in order to be anti-Semitic. Listen, you're never gonna see a real rose again one day. But anyway, whatever. You're selfish because you are looking at your own little unique silo, individualistic you. One day you're not gonna be able to breathe, okay, all right? Because there's gonna be any more air. But hey, you got a cool house. You're not gonna be able to take whatever under heaven it is that you be out to trying to achieve in your little unique silo. Anyway, whatever. You mongrel, you like a cactus. Sit on it and like burn. Anyway, whatever. So the Redacted, I go in there, I click on it, And then the hosts in that show start speaking about how I don't know why the world is out here not trying to show just how evil Israel is. Israel, I was like, I was glitching, like I was twitching. I was, oh, you're all going to die down here. I was starting to like, you know what I mean? I was starting to have that glitch and that twitch. When they said that, so I paused it and I go in the comment section and I see all of these people that want to believe that Israel ain't Jack. And I mean, among the comments were weird stuff like, I don't know why everybody keeps coddling Israel. They need to realize that this country is just sheer evil. And then other people, they are just speaking about how it is that they need to be eliminated. The anti-Semitism in the comment section. I was like, goodness, no, I need to unsubscribe from Redacted. I need to make sure that I never get recommended this channel again, because I don't want to be robotic and out here twitch and glitch and short circuit and say you're all going to die down here, because I'm realizing that the world has come to a blistering end now. Anti-Semitism has reached a height. The cup of staggering that is Jerusalem is about to cause Ezekiel 38 and 39. We're there, and so because we're there, all I can prophesy on the rooftop now is that the end is here. The rapture is happening. Get ready. Get your affairs in order. We're going in the sky. We're going to see the Lord seated on the throne like Isaiah. But this time around in incorruptible bodies. So there won't be a need for burning coals to make our lips clean again. We're going home. No. Yes, sure, eventually. But not yet. I saw that I was going to glitch and twitch and look like a short circuit. And I needed to get out. But guess what Redacted was covering to make it look like Israel was this nasty, gnarly monster. I'm making a point. Mainstream media is like Redacted. They are out here proliferating wrong information. But you see, you cannot put certain information on CNN. You cannot put certain information on a news network. You can't put certain information on the New York Times, Washington Post. You can't, because they're so mainstream that as soon as they proliferate a lie and it gets proven a lie, they have to like send an apology. They have to say, I'm sorry. They have to redact. They have to recant. They have to retreat. They have to correct themselves. You will know how artificial intelligence bots are to be producing images coming out of Gaza that ain't the real deal, but they, through these independent channels, amass for themselves just gazillions. They amass for themselves gazillions of views. And the people who ultimately disprove the footage as authentic, legitimate, and real only get watched by 1 million people. The conservatives maybe will be like, this is a lie, but by then it's already reached gazillions of people that believe the artificial intelligence. It's what Charlie Kirk was trying to counsel Netanyahu, saying, listen, you are losing the PR war. You need to perhaps like do a different thing. Israel is losing the PR war. But that's the thing. Why would Israel lose the PR war? They're losing the PR war precisely because they're honest. They're honest. People who win PR wars are fabricators, they're liars, and they're happy to recant a statement, but only once it's done the damage. It's like back in the day. You will remember how celebrities, when they were starting to fizzle out, when celebrities were starting to fizzle away, you know how they would do whatever they needed to do to win understanding in the media, to win attention again in the media. And their whole mindset was any kind of PR is good PR. Any kind of news is good news. Any kind of coverage is good coverage. So they would literally do bizarre, weird stuff like what Britney Spears apparently did with shaving her hair in front of everybody, like what Lindsay Lohan, like a whole millionaire, just stealing like what do you call the stuff? Is it like jewelry, makeup? Remember Lindsay Lohan? She's like so wealthy and she went and stole because she was starting to fizzle. She was starting to fizzle away, and it was speculated by E! News that covered it at the time that Lindsay Lohan, we imagine, anticipate that because she was fizzling away, she was dying down. She basically went into that store and stole, I think it was perfume. I stand corrected as to what she was stealing in order to basically get news on her again. And you know what? It worked. It worked like proper. It brought attention back to her. It brought Britney Spears' little meltdown, brought attention back to her, but at the same time, it also put her under conservatorship. So conservatorship, you ate that word, okay? Conservatorship. Yeah, she was put under her dad's iron fist or whatever, and still to this day she's struggling to come up for air. Oh, Britney Spears. But apparently, allegedly, she did all that because she was apparently advised, or she was starting to simmer down, and so anything to get attention. Like, yeah, when celebrities are starting to die down, they do weird stuff in this country. Pearl Tracy went and took a photo in a tree, and she's much too old to be out there wearing a bikini in a tree. Like anything at all to get attention for yourself. And in the case of Lindsay Lohan, even so far as to mess with your criminal record by stealing, because I guess you trust that, unlike the rest of us who have to make sure that we don't get criminal records so we can still be employable by corporates when you're a celebrity. So what if you're an ex-con, right? So what? If anything, it might add to your celebrityhood to have been in prison before. It might add to your clout or whatever. So they're not really scared to go to jail for 6 months. They're not really, or whatever. And that's what Lindsay Lohan did. Anything for PR. So when you are not honest, it'll be easy for you to win PR wars. It'll be easy for you to get attention. It'll be easy for you to get listened to rather than the next door neighbor. You are going to be more theatrical. You're going to be full of lies. You are going to be willing to fabricate some details. You are going to be willing to embellish a few details. You are going to be willing to essentially do what it takes to get the PR war on your side. And Israel is, never mind Israel, but if you're honest and you insist on maintaining honesty, you are not going to win a PR war. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to win. You're not going to win a PR war that runs on, you're not going to win a PR war in order to win popularity. The battle on that day becomes the Lord's, and the reality is what is rather on your side. Trust in the Lord becomes what is on your side. You must wake up to realize that those who are with you are more numerous than those who are with them. But those who are with them are full of psychological manipulation. They win PR wars. And the only reason why they win PR wars is because they are willing to lie. They're willing to embellish. They're willing to fabricate. They're willing to add weird, little, strange, extra information into a space. And they also are willing to recant, redact, retreat, but only after the damage has been done. They know that once you leak a nude, or once you put an ISIS beheading online, there'll always be people that'll have it, even though it is deleted on the social media platform. Even though it has been brought down, even though people have complained, there will always be people that will see it. There will be people that will always have access to it, and it will also be burned in people's understanding. They won't be able to unsee what they saw. They won't be able to unsee what they saw, and so because they will not be able to unsee what they saw, the damage is done. And that's how Hamas, or the pro-Palestinian movement, the anti-Israel movement, has won information war. It's because it's dishonest and it's prepared to keep on saying, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I'm sorry, I lied. I'm sorry, I this. I'm sorry, I did not fact check. I'm sorry, this information ultimately turned out to not be the real deal. I'm sorry. They're willing to offer apologies, but they also know that by the time they offer an apology for fabricating information, there are people who just don't buy iskelem. They already trust the lie, and they are also not going to happen upon the I'm sorry. And again, the apology also tends to be, while the initial wrong information, the PR nightmare proliferation was done in like the front page of this particular publication, the apology will be on page 7. The apology will be on page 21, and even then at the very bottom over there, without even like a photograph captioning, where a photograph with a caption on it. Yeah, so they'll just basically have only this to say, I said sorry, but on page 28. I said sorry, but on page 3, even though I shared the lie on page 1 with a massive headline, a huge photograph, and a massive lie. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, and so given that that's a thing, most people who will have caught wind of this false information will never even know that it was false, because of the fact that they're not going to page to page 27. They're not going to go to page 9. They're not going to go to the bottom of an article. They're not. They're just going to like look at what is rather being presented to them. And since most people just run with groupthink, since most people just run with what is being told to them, since most people run with the grapevine, since most people are just lazy to self-research, self-study, they're not going to do their own fact-checking. Most people did not go to journalism school to learn how to fact check or to, you get my point. Most people just don't care. They just run with whatever is being told them. Even the Bible says that the Bereans are more noble than most, because of the fact that after Paul and them have taught, they go in the Bible, in the scriptures, to verify, to validate that which is being taught by the apostles against the scriptures. So the Bible encourages fact checking. The Bible encourages a Berean disposition, but I mean, you know, most people don't even take advice from the Bible. Their houses are not built upon the rock, they're built on the sand. They hear the word, it goes in one ear and out the other. They could not care any kind of less for the truth. They just run with whatever is being taught them. And in the last days, you're also going to get a whole bunch of people that would much rather learn understanding from the scriptures through teachers instead of through self-study. They just listen to crazy preachers and they run with whatever is being taught, and that's why Prophet Lovi's church is just packed to the brim. And that is why Zwake Transedi or whatever is packed, Bushiri packed. That is why Marcus Rogers is packed. That is why all these churches full of all these randos are just packed. They're packed because people just want to keep on listening. People want to keep on listening, but without fact checking. And so if they don't fact check, they will never learn the truth. And because of the lazy nature of people and their unpreparedness to fact check, therefore, whoever is honest and is just out here just trying to be, above reproach, their battle is won by their honesty only in God. The Lord will in due season if you lash onto him. It is written in his word, commit your ways to the Lord and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn and the justice of your vindication like the noonday sun. Lord is the one that's going to give you vindication in spite of dishonest, shoddy, underhanded embellishments caused by a nightmarish conglomerate of people that are living in a crazy little dystopian, myopic silo where it is that in the spirit of whatever million they get in order to lie about Israel or to lie about whatever it is that is a lie, they're just comfortable with the fact that they're gonna just amass for themselves numbers upon numbers upon numbers of followers, and so be really comfortable in their small little dystopian nightmarish corner of the earth at the expense of the truth, and be dead by the time the lie they proliferated causes so much dystopia on earth that indeed now all saints on earth will have to tell everybody, you're all going to die down here. You're all going to die down here. They're gonna bring the world to a dystopian nightmare, but by then, Candace Owens is 99 and away 2 seconds from breathing her last. By then, Tucker Carlson is 108 and 2 seconds away from breathing his last. He's already destroyed all that much. By the way, the hosts on the show Redacted are 299 and on their way to breathing their last. And so they're gonna leave Gen, never mind Alpha, but Beta behind with all that crap to run with all that nonsense to deal with all that beheading in the tribulation to handle, with all that. They're selfish that whatever it is that they're doing, even though maybe they might have a conscience and a tag of it, they don't care that in my lifetime, I'm highly unlikely going to endure the consequences of all this anti-Semitism and also the consequences of standing with what do you call this, with the obviously wrong side, like you cannot love people that are that violent, that out to kill their own people. You cannot stand with people that do public executions of their own people, who hate democracy. You cannot stand with rapists. And you also cannot possibly expect a country to not defend itself and be any kind of decent or reasonable. You cannot stand with that. It is evident who here makes the best sense to stand with for the sake of the global health, for the sake of the health of the global citizenship. You cannot be any kind of reasonably expectant of a safe earth when you stand with anti-Israel sentiment in favor of Israel's enemies, who are just barbaric and bizarre. Israel's enemies are killing the church in Nigeria. Israel's enemies are killing the church in Sudan, in Mozambique. They're being funded by Iran. They're being funded by the Middle East, by the United Arab Emirates. The UAE might not necessarily be an enemy of Israel, but it is an enemy of Christianity. And they are trying to spread Islam across the world. And when then you are standing with Islam, you for the life of you are standing with the massacre of so many Africans in jihad. And that is not a sustainable world to support structures like those. So you gotta know that in the end, it's going to result in something heinous for the world at large. You can't stand with them and be as intelligent as Candace Owens and be as intelligent as Tucker Carlson and not be able to forecast 100 years into the future that your PR on behalf of that enemy will cause a dystopian nightmare on the global scale, where there will be just an absolute massacring of democracies across the world. Who were massacred because you stood with the wrong people 100 years ago. And you were that famous, you were that popular, you were that mammoth, you were so big. And you also had a whole bunch of people grabbing you for their teacher to teach them what their itching ears want to hear. People who already hated Israel from the get-go. You were scratching their itching ears. You were pampering them with validation. And so because of the fact that that's what you did, now that you are on your deathbed 100 years from today, the world will be looking that much more dystopian. And while today there might be a certain percentage of people that are anti-Semitic, you will have contributed to several, never mind decimal points, but actual individual unique single-digit points more of a percentage increase in global anti-Semitism. So if at all today is standing at 25%, it'll be because of you that by the time we die 100 years from today is now sitting at 45%. And so at that height, there will be that many more people sending out flyers. There will be that many more people hunting a rhetoric to hate Israel. So therefore moving that 45% to 50 that much faster, seeing as there's that many more people advocating for this particular concern. That's what you're doing. You cannot be that intelligent, that smart, and not foresee what you're actually doing. You cannot be that intelligent and that smart, and so therefore not there, and not therefore foresee what you are actually doing. All that I can conclude is that you trust that by the time you pass away, by the time you get to a ripe old age, even though presently you are popping babies and your babies are popping babies, so basically you are making the earth nicely uninhabitable for your grandchildren. You don't care because, I mean, you're not going to be alive when there's all that dystopia. You're like King, is it Hezekiah in the Bible, that knew that the Israelis will be taken into captivity in Babylon, but was like, as long as that doesn't happen in my lifetime proper, I'm good. He was selfish. He didn't stand in the gap for his country. He didn't pray because he knew that captivity and that disaster was only going to fall upon his land once he was dead. So that was enough for him. So just like that king, you're good insofar as you're not here to endure global anti-Semitism at a height of maybe 45% to 80%, just to give 45% to 50%, because that's when essentially it would make the whole planet insufferable, including Yona America Yaluna. So redacted when I was all up in that world and I saw those comments, I was like, what in the world? And guess what it is that they were sharing in the video? Guess what apparently allegedly made Israel this heinous monster? They were showing a video of IDF soldiers literally rounding up a bunch of Palestinians in a warehouse, and they were raping them. They were raping Palestinians, men and women. So they were essentially sodomizing men and raping women. And these people were IDF soldiers. I was so bereft at that apparent footage that made its way on redacted, because I was like, but why would IDF soldiers put themselves, that footage was not doctored, it was real, right? And I was like, why would IDF soldiers, knowing all the global anti-Semitism that is going on, why would they do this? Like, what the heck? And I remember just thinking, listen, in every country that are crazy there, because I stand with Israel no matter what, I clicked away from that video, and I also, I didn't unsubscribe, I didn't even bother to unsubscribe, I just clicked don't recommend channel, so I don't ever have to watch Redacted again, right? Yeah, but I remember just being really distressed, and I remember also just saying to myself, listen, whoever you stand for, nobody's perfect, and there are rapists in Israel, there are murderers in Israel, that's why there are prisons over there, and there are Israelis in those prisons, there are all different kinds of crazy, gnarly people in every society. So you don't just stop supporting a country or a people purely because of the misdeeds of certain people there that are really gnarly, monstrous, right? And I also wanted to even do a comparison in my own brain saying, listen, look at these IDF soldiers.